Designer diseases. So this, I love this idea. If you think about, go back, to Western movies, or anybody remembers the video game Oregon Trail. The diseases, years ago were consumption. Bonus points. Anybody know what consumption was? Tuberculosis. Yeah, that was the name that they gave to tuberculosis. Dysentery. Remember on the Oregon Trail, it was like, you died of dysentery. Essentially, that was E. coli. It was like basically food poisoning. It was from not washing hands, stuff like that. Those were the diseases back then. Nowadays, most of our diseases are a byproduct of our wealth and our luxury of getting to live. So unfortunately, some of the information as we go through each one of these, even though they're all different, there's a lot of crossover in terms of the solutions can be very similar a lot of times. And I'm just full disclosure, I want you guys to know a lot of the solutions have a lot of crossover to them. So one of the most important conversations I think we'll have around our health are some of the things we're going to be going over. What we're seeing today isn't random, it's kind of designed. And I call them designer diseases because I literally mean that. I was talking to a patient, this is a true story. Yesterday, a guy came in and he works for a flavor company. Okay, there's two big ones in Cincinnati. And I'm not here to talk trash about flavor companies. But I said, man, flavor is it's a wild science. He's a food scientist. And I said, all right, so for instance, when I see natural vanilla flavoring, okay, you guys are making that flavor. And all the label has to say is natural vanilla flavoring. How many chemicals are in that natural vanilla flavoring? He goes, it could be any number. And he goes, but the real danger is how many chemicals were used in the processing of it. He goes, in any given situation, sometimes it's 50 to 150 different chemicals can be used to make a flavor. And so if you want to know where a lot of the dysfunction comes from, and I said, where are the big ones? He goes, sauces and soups and dressings. That's the big stuff. So you go to a restaurant and you're going to order soup and salad because you're going to try to get healthy. And he's like, it's the dressings and the sauces and the soups that are actually the most essentially toxic. And we were talking about different chemicals and stuff because of the things I've been studying. And he's like, yeah, you get it. He goes, most people don't get this. This guy lost 80 pounds in 2020, and he's working on losing about 20 more pounds. And I said, how did you lose the 80 pounds? He goes, I stopped eating all the stuff I make. And he goes, we almost exclusively eat at home right now. And I said, okay, so knowing what you know, what would you tell someone like me in terms of how to eat? And he said, it's real simple. Keep it simple. He goes, it's meat, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds. That's pretty much it. He goes, outside of that, when it comes to dressings or stuff, he goes, there are better options on the market. He goes, but most of them are pretty easy to make. And then he goes, and I said, well, why do people, what's the deal? He goes, it's just cheaper. And I'm like, hey, there's no way it can be cheaper because lemon and vinegar and olive oil doesn't cost that much. Salt and pepper don't cost that much. And he goes, all of the natural, like the actual natural stuff isn't subsidized. But all this stuff that we're doing and all the chemical stuff, it's all subsidized. So even though it actually costs more to do, your taxpayer dollars, my taxpayer dollars go to fund companies and they get subsidized to produce this crap food that gets sold back to us. So when I say designer diseases, I'm telling you, like the stuff that we're dealing with, whether it's ill-intentioned or not, and I tend to be a little more on the side of conspiracy and think it is by design, whether it's just simply for profit or whether there's something more, evil going on there. But before we get any further, I just really I want people to understand something, and this is the idea that we built these problems. So when people come to me, and here's the beauty in this is if we built a problem in our own health, then the good news is we can dismantle it too. Okay? If you're a great example of this. Irene, how many pounds have you lost?
120.
You didn't get to the 120 because of somebody else.
No.
And you didn't lose 120 because of somebody else, right? And so the reality is if we built the problem, we can fix the problem. And even that goes as far as I had a friend who got diagnosed with cancer, and he took that approach to his cancer, and they said, oh, you have cancer. His question was, why do I have cancer? How did this happen? What caused my cancer to exist? What were the fundamental underlying things that my body's building cancer, my wife's body's not building cancer, why is my body building cancer? And those are the right type of questions to ask. And when he figured out and got to the source of what it was that caused it, now he had a plan for like, how do I unravel that and how do I undo it? So that's the lens I really want you guys to look through this. We didn't necessarily get to these diseases intentionally, but it has been systematically over time. So if that's true, we really got to start asking those different questions. I have on here, chronic illness isn't fate. It's not genetic destiny. It's actually pretty predictable, and it's an outcome of our modern living. And we have to start looking at what is it that we do to get out of these situations. So I think a lot of people think that disease, and the big ones we're going to go through are things that you guys have heard about, from autoimmune issues, heart disease, diabetes. We're going to go anxiety, depression. And I think the unfortunate thing is sometimes we feel like it's either bad luck, genetics, or these things. And unfortunately, that's like a permission slip to just keep living life the way we're living it. And you get that prescription slip, which really is a permission slip to keep doing what you're doing, and then chemically and artificially just lower the numbers, and that isn't working out. And this is crazy. I say this, new patients hear me say this sometimes, and they're like, what are you talking about? But the modern medicine, here in the United States, we think that like we have the most money, we have the most doctors, we have the most prescription drugs. We take about roughly 60% of the entire world's prescription drugs. We're 6%, maybe 7% of the world's population. So we should be taking 6 to 7% of the world's drugs, not 60% of the world's drugs.
Is that just in this country?
In the United States. Okay? So we have the best of the best of the best in terms of money, ability, all this. So in terms of outcomes, we should have the best. If taking the drugs and following the pharmaceutical model worked, we would all be the healthiest in the world. Out of the 40-something industrialized countries in the world that they rank every single year, the World Health Organization ranks them, we rank at the very bottom every single year. We rank number one in one category, and that is we can keep you alive and miserable longer than everybody else. We can keep you on drugs and miserable in terms of your health. But we have the world's worst infant mortality rates. We have the world's worst mortality rates for mothers giving birth. Like, that's crazy if you think about it. And then we rank terribly in every other category. Think about this, heart disease, more or less than ever in history. More. Cancer, diabetes, obesity. So it's going in the wrong direction. So I'll make this statement to people, and I'll say, modern medicine doesn't work. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Because we spend all this money and all the science, whatever, but in terms of outcomes, it doesn't work. And so our responsibility is to step outside of that. Now listen, if you break your arm or you're in a car accident or something like trauma, that's different. There is a time and a place for a lot of things. But if you want to be healthy, that's not it. There was a recent article, actually it wasn't that recent, it was about a decade ago, that was published, and it was from Harvard, and it said that annual exams, just going into your doctor and getting checked out every year, actually cause more illness than it prevents. That we think, oh, we should look under the hood and check it out, but they go, no, going in, their job, my dad was a ceramic tile layer, when the foreman comes in, guess what his job is? To find the problem. So my dad would reach forward and take one of the tiles and twist it a little bit before he walked in. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I got to give him something to find. That's his whole job, is to find the issue. If it's not that one, he's going to find something else that he thinks is a problem. Oh my gosh, look at that time. Man, I'm glad you're here. And he'd fix it. So like if you go into your medical doctor and you get a little stressed out and get your blood pressure up, guess what they're going to do? They're going to throw you on some blood pressure medication. And their job is to find a problem. So inevitably, you always have to go into any situation. And there's nothing wrong with information. If you get an MRI or something like that, there's nothing wrong with knowing what's damaged. The question is, what are you going to do with that information? Does that make sense? And so our guidance to you guys, or the things that I would say is, any time that you're going into a doctor, anytime you have a diagnostic test, I'll give you a couple of the questions that I ask, but ultimately you have to go into it to the lens of, okay, if I don't want to end up on pharmaceuticals, if my goal is to avoid surgery at all costs, then what would you recommend? And unfortunately, they don't know. And again, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to beat them up or whatever. They're great when it comes to emergency and life-saving care, but outside of that, the goal, like if you wreck your car, you take it to somewhere to like fix your car, but that's not where you take your car to maintain it and keep it in good shape. So if you wreck your body, yeah, sure, let them work on it, but then try to get as far away from there as you possibly can and find people who are going to help you rebuild your health over time. So our bodies aren't broken. I don't believe that. I believe from a spiritual standpoint, and you guys know as a Christian, I believe that our bodies were fearfully and wonderfully made. I believe we were created in the image of God. I believe that we're healing. I believe that you're not born and then you like spiral downward into disease and decay and death. I believe that actually you're probably at your most vulnerable when you're born, and you're probably the most susceptible when you're born, and that you actually get stronger. And then there comes this time where we start making enough money and getting comfortable enough to where we start peaking and we start going in the other direction. And a lot of it's due to stress and affluence, time management, and these things. So we gotta start investing in the right areas. How our body responds is exactly how it was designed to respond. If you have a symptom, that symptom is actually your body doing the right thing at the right time, given the environment and the situation it's in. If your blood pressure is high, it's because the innate intelligence that God placed inside your body thought that your blood pressure needed to be up, given what's going on the internal and external environment around your body. For instance, if you drink Coca-Cola, a couple of them a day, and the phosphoric acid that's in there and all the sugar that's in there, it starts creating inflammation and it starts corroding your arteries. You actually start having microbleeding through tissue. The blood vessels will swell up. If this was my pipes in my ceiling and we shut off the pipes that deliver water throughout the building, I think they're in the ceiling. I don't think they're in the floor. I think most of them are in the ceiling. But if we shut off that water and we started pumping acid through it, okay? What's going to happen to my pipes in time? They're going to corrode, okay? When they corrode, they could start potentially leaking over time, and they're going to lose pressure. So one of two things has to happen. We either have to seal up the leaks or we have to increase the pressure from the other end. And in our bodies, when that happens in our blood vessels, same thing happens. We actually start corroding and irritating the arteries. We start losing pressure. And so our body has to do what? Increase the pressure, number one. Number two, it starts trying to plug up the holes. How does it do that? With one of the best repair substances known to man called cholesterol. It actually sends it to the area to start plugging up. Cholesterol's pliable, it's soft, it's a good fat, it helps heal and repair arteries, it's anti-inflammatory. But when cholesterol is exposed to an acidic environment, particularly one high in sugar, it starts to get hard. So now it starts plaquing in the arteries. So now the medical men, we cut the artery open, we look down the artery and we go, oh my God, look at all this cholesterol blocking up the arteries. It's there to save your life. So the cholesterol is not the enemy, it's the condition that we need to address, not the thing. And the symptom of the blood pressure going up is actually helping you to save your life. So they'll put you on a blood pressure medication to lower your blood pressure. They'll put you on a medication to decrease the cholesterol, both of which are life-saving things. And the stats show that over time, you're not healthier. You actually get worse. And now you have the side effects of the drugs that you're taking.
I stopped taking both of them, and I'm doing better than I've ever.
There you go. But it's not just being blind to what's going on and negligence, like not taking a medication. It's, yes, we can quit this, but we have to step over into this other paradigm of how did I get here in the first place and how do I get this changing? So we're going to go through the 7 designer diseases. There's probably more. These are the big 7. Diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune issues, anxiety and depression, hormonal imbalances, obesity, and chronic pain. So for each of these have skyrocketed. And the reason I call them designer diseases, because in the last 50 years, these have just... Autoimmunity, okay? That was a term that if you guys knew it 30 years ago, it was basically HIV, and that was it. And then thyroids came on the scene. Everyone's thyroids started getting jacked up. 2 reasons. 1, we actually started being exposed to chemicals and things that messed up our thyroids more. But 2, we actually developed testing for thyroids. So sometimes things end up getting diagnosed more because they come up with testing. When they come up with testing, what do they also come up with? Drugs. So now we have a means to find it and a pill to give. Guess how many more people are going to get diagnosed with it? Right? The other trick they like to play is cholesterol levels. We have them up here, and heart disease is getting worse because we're not addressing the cause, we're just addressing the symptom. And heart disease is getting worse, cholesterol is going down, but heart disease is getting worse. They're like, you know what? We must lower the standards and get more people on cholesterol medication. So it used to be that, you know, your blood had to have so many nanograms per deciliter, and then they just, every few years, they started lowering the number, putting more people on cholesterol drugs. But the crazy thing is, they did a really good job at lowering people's cholesterol, but on those drugs websites themselves, they say, Crestor lowers your cholesterol. But there's no evidence that it decreases your risk of heart disease, heart attack, or stroke. Well, what the heck are we taking it for? Because that's what they told you. You're supposed to be on it because high cholesterol supposedly creates those things. And then we lower cholesterol, and the heart disease is no better than it was in the first place. And then the secondary problem is now we have more dementia, more Alzheimer's, because cholesterol is protective to the brain. It's wild when you really start looking at this. And there are people speaking out against this. Chiropractors have always been the weird ones speaking about this stuff. But now you have Dr. Kelsey and Casey Means. We have RFK in office. We have people who are starting to ask the right questions. And so hopefully we'll start to see this shift. There's a shift, but what's interesting is the biggest shift right now has actually been consumer driven. That the consumer is actually changing the market. So now they're like, oh, I guess we'll add vitamin C and frankincense into chemotherapy, and now they call it, you know, what's the term that they're using? It's alternative care. It's like, that's not alternative. You're still giving them chemo. You're just giving them chemo and adding in some frankincense and some vitamin C because you know it's a good chelator. It's crazy. So how do we address these? We're going to go through each one of them. We'll keep it quick and tight. Diabetes. What is diabetes really? We're talking type 2, not type 1. Type 1, I could go even deeper on that. That's really fascinating. Type 1 diabetes, someone becomes a type 1 diabetic at some point in time. They're not born a type 1 diabetic. They'll tell you you're born with the gene, but you're born with susceptibility, but your pancreas is functioning, and then at an age, it stops functioning. And typically, there are 2 major interferences that create type 1 diabetes. One of them is vaccinations, heavy metals and chemicals that actually are neurotoxins and destroy the nerve going to your pancreas. Number 2, subluxation. Vertebra that are misaligned that put pressure on the nerve going to your pancreas. I've actually witnessed that firsthand. I adjusted a type 1 diabetic one time. He left my office. He called about 5 minutes later. He's driving down the road. He had to pull over because his pancreas, for the first time in 20 years, started dumping all kinds of insulin, and he checked his blood sugar and it was like way low, and he goes, is there any way that adjustment could have affected? I'm like, you have a nerve that goes to your pancreas. And when have you ever been adjusted before? Never. Well, potentially, I'm not saying it's the only cause, but in order for that pancreas to heal, that nerve has to signal. And if that nerve is being damaged, that pancreas isn't going to get signals. And so when we adjusted him and got pressure off that nerve, his pancreas, for the first time in years, started to fire. But type 2 diabetes, it's largely what we're putting in our mouth. It's mostly added sugar. And, you know, a lot of people, like, I try to stay away from sugar. This, again, go back, look at your salad dressings, look at your soups, look at these things, and calculate how much added sugar you guys are consuming in a day. I would challenge anyone in this room to try to keep your added sugar intake below 100 grams daily. And even that sounds like a lot. It's not easy to do. It's challenging to do. Go ahead.
Quick question. So 100 grams added sugar is different?
Yeah, so I would start with added sugar, because you'll get really depressed if you just start trying to go after keeping your sugar intake. If you're eating, start with added sugar and just start looking at everything that you're eating, especially anything that comes from a box bag, can, bottle, and start looking at how much sugar is in it. I bought a sparkling water today. I thought it was just lime sparkling water. And I took a sip and I'm like, that's weird. I look, 4 grams of sugar and stevia in it, and I'm like, I just thought it was a sparkling water. I literally walked out of the gas station where I bought it. I actually wanted a Pellegrino, but it's called Liquid Death. Have you guys ever had? That should have been a clue right there. It's a brand. But they make a regular one, but I took a sip and I'm like, ugh, and I literally just, there goes $3 right in the trash can. Because that's just, and in our house, and you guys, if you've heard me talk once, you've heard this before, even in our house where we're very particular about it, I'll go through the pantry and do the pantry inspector. And I'm like, when did we start buying this? Why are we buying this? And it's funny because we're like, well, that was that brand that we were using. And it's like, yeah, but the one product had no sugar and this product has lots of it. So you look at labels. Number 2, lower muscle mass. If you want to fight type 2 diabetes, put on 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. One of your greatest assets as we age, all of us, I'm not immune to this, nobody in this room is immune to this, is muscle mass. They call it the organ of longevity. It's your largest metabolic organ in your entire body. Even if you're overweight, put on muscle mass. Put on muscle mass. Muscle mass is a metabolic organ. Muscle is helping you to burn excess fat and calories. When we lose muscle mass, we tend to also gain fat mass. The exception to that is, when you get into like long distance runners, right? They'll lose muscle mass, but a lot of times they'll also lose fat mass. But because they're also losing muscle mass, they'll get thin, but they don't look muscular. You have to do weight training to keep the muscle on when you run, right? So that's the exception, is people who do long distance, they'll tend to lose both. But most people, when they lose muscle mass, they're gaining fat mass. Your fat actually contains certain cells within it that attract more of that. When we gain fat tissue, it signals to our pancreas to start increasing blood sugar and insulin and all these things. And so the more fat we put on, the more signaling goes, and we actually the more you put on, the more you want to store. It's really crazy. It's about the direction you're heading, not necessarily how much you have. And so it's all about that momentum. When you start putting on fat, your body actually wants to start conserving more fat. When you're breaking that fat down, you're building muscle, your body wants to start building more muscle. When you guys start building muscle, you'll start craving the foods that muscle wants. When you start putting on weight, you'll crave the foods that weight wants, because innately your body wants to keep that momentum going. Protein is the name of the game. If we're trying to break this cycle, protein. I want to encourage you guys to try to eat bare minimum 100 grams of protein a day. For a lot of people, that would be a challenge. If you really, really want to build muscle mass and you're working out, I would challenge you to get that up and try to eat 1 gram of protein for every pound you weigh. Now, if you got a lot of pounds, that's going to sound challenging. But the goal is to try to get that number up and eating a lot more protein. Protein is your friend in this. Nervous system deregulation, you're going to see that on every slide. Why? Because you're in a chiropractic office. But when it comes to signaling, your pancreas, your metabolic function, in order to build muscle, in order to burn fat, in order for hormones to change, it's all neurologically driven. Why? Because everything's neurologically driven. And it's all about adaptation. That's a word that you guys should get familiar with. adaptation. Life is all about adapting to stress, whether it's good, whether it's bad, lifting weights, you have to adapt, you have to break down tissue. Adaptation is the name of the game. You're either adapting in a positive way or you're adapting in a negative way. And adaptation is regulated and controlled through your nervous system. So takeaway on this, blood sugar is controlled by muscle and your nervous system, not just medication. So if we want to fight type 2 diabetes, decrease sugar intake, increase protein. That alone, don't overcomplicate it. That alone will change things dramatically. Okay? Are there supplements you could take? Are there things that help you to not metabolize the blood, the sugar that you're eating as much? Yeah, absolutely. But the general name of the game, decrease sugar, increase protein. Cool?
You should decrease your carb intake as well. Because as we age, our metabolism slows down. We don't go out and exercise like we used to. So we're not using the carbs, but turn to sugar.
Particularly starchy carbohydrates. Your fibrous carbohydrates, you're not going to eat enough broccoli to increase your blood sugar. But yes, carbohydrate intake. For most people, focus on added sugar, then focus on things that break down into sugar. You guys, 2 slices of bread, somewhere between 14 to 20 grams of sugar. So the other day, we were having a burger. Kids are getting the burger. They have a bun on it. Dad, why are you eating it wrapped in lettuce? Because I don't need 20 more grams of sugar. You guys are burning it off like crazy at the moment. They actually can benefit from a little bit more glucose because my son practiced soccer for 2.5 hours last night. I'm like, you're burning that sugar up like crazy. I'm not. And so I don't need the 2 buns on the burger. I got 2 beef patties instead of 1 beef patty and 2 buns. I could have put it's the other way around. I could have made the patties the meat on the outside. Heart disease. We kind of hit this one in the beginning. Chronic inflammation is the name of the game. Where does chronic inflammation come from? Also sugar. Okay? Sugar's evil. Okay? Artificial sweeteners are not a replacement for sugar. If sugar is the devil, artificial sweeteners have the devil on a leash. Okay? They're worse. They are typically, most of them are forms of sugar that have been chemically manipulated so that you don't process them or digest them well, but they add chemicals to them. So for instance, some of them, they add a chlorine molecule to it. Go drink some pool water and you'll find out how toxic chlorine is. And it'll tell you it's safe and all that, but will one Diet Coke kill you? No, but drinking them over time and adding artificial sweeteners and stuff, they screw up your metabolism as bad or worse than sugar. And it used to be thought that they didn't raise your blood sugar, and now we know that they actually raise it. In fact, they raise it worse than sugar in some cases, depending on the sweetener. What are some good alternatives to that? Stay as natural as you can. Honey, maple syrup, they have sugar in them, but they're much more natural. They break down and assimilate easier. They're a whole food source, but we also use a little bit of stevia. But I'll challenge you guys with this. If sweets are your problem, then sweets are your problem. So the goal is to try to break the addiction to it. People are like, well, what sweetener would I use if I don't use this sweetener? It's like, well, the goal is that we start getting away from sweeteners. It's amazing how much better the rest of the food tastes when you're not on sweeteners. We were watching Shark Tank the other day. There was some berry. Did you guys see this one by chance? Some berry that you can eat, and something chemically happens when you eat this berry. It's a naturally occurring berry. But then anything you eat after it tastes sweet. So they were giving people like pickles, and they're like, the pickle tasted sweet. And my daughter's like, I need that. I'm like, no, that's the opposite of the goal. We don't want everything tasting sweet. We want nothing tasting sweet. With my kids, it was funny. We were really good about this with the first one. He had 0 sugar until he was probably age 4. And so he was our best eater. And today, he's just not a sweet eater. Now, don't get me wrong, if they threw out Halloween candy around school or whatever, he's going to want it, but he's just he doesn't crave sweets or anything like that. My youngest one was definitely my worst one, and I blame it on church, because at church every single week, they're like giving them candy and all this. And my daughter's like sneaking off in the corner and eating it. And she's my most challenging one with this because her taste buds are addicted to it. They say that you have to try a food, the research says 17 times before your taste buds actually adapt to it. Well, that's not hard with sugar because it's in everything. So I would challenge you, the other thing is how long can you go without it and see, and what's interesting is how different food tastes when you're not addicted to it. All right, yep.
Quick question, what about monk fruit with the alcohol? Is that
Sugar alcohols, they don't quite spike insulin levels as much as some, other sweeteners do, but again, yeah, people, they're like, oh, I don't drink Coke anymore, but I drink, there's a drink called B-A-I, and it's all monk fruit. And so, again, they go right to like, I'm going to drink this. I'm going to drink erythritol and sugar alcohols. And the goal is to try to break that as much as possible. The other thing, not only sugar, but this is where bad fats, inflammatory fats, so trans fats, this is horrible. They're very inflammatory. Most of your bad fats, here's the reality, packaged food is, my daughter had a bag of chips the other day. She's getting ready to go to volleyball. She has a bag of chips. She's running out the car. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? Come here. Let me see these chips. And I'm like, that's crap. That's hydrogenated. That's a word you want to stay away from. Hydrogenated oils. And they're just very inflammatory. And so when the sugar does the damage to the inside of the blood vessel, and then you're eating these bad fats, the bad fats increase the inflammation. Good fats, like olive oil and coconut oil, those things actually calm down the inflammation. Flaxseed oil, these help to calm down inflammation. Avocado oil is a decent one. Grapeseed oil is a decent one. Have you guys ever noticed that it was vegetable oil that was touted for years and years and years? All right, so what vegetables do they make vegetable oil out of?
corn?
Which is a grain. Well, how about what else? Peanuts, that's a legume.
Soybean.
Soy, that's a legume. None of these are vegetables, notice that? Why do they call them vegetable oils? Canola comes from a seed called rapeseed. They call them vegetable oils because vegetable, healthy, but none of them come from vegetables. They're these highly, highly, highly processed seed oils and a lot of times from legumes too, and they're very inflammatory. They're very high in omega-6s and 9s at best. A lot of them are very denatured. We want lots of good omega-3 fatty acids. Where do those come from? They come from nuts, fish. You can get omega-3s through, there are lots of plants, avocados, walnuts. These are a lot of your good sources of omega-3s. Olive oil, really good, high-quality extra virgin olive oil, ideally organic. Like if you're just buying like vats of olive oil from Costco off the shelf, a lot of times it's like half canola oil anyway, and they're not disclosing it. But really good, high-quality olive oil is one of the best anti-inflammatory things you can have outside of fish oil. Poor breathing mechanics. This is an interesting one. My kids make fun of me because I'm wearing this thing now at night. This is going to be weird. I'm going to give you guys a demonstration, okay? Can everybody see my nostrils? Watch this one. Do you see how it collapses?
Yes.
It's called a deviated septum. So this one collapses, this one doesn't. Every issue I've ever had has been right-sided. If I get a headache, it's on the right side. If I had an ear issue, it's on the right side. If I had an eye issue, it's on the right side. Oxygen is huge. And this nostril does really well with oxygen. This one doesn't. If you just split the face in half, right? This one's feeding that side of the face to some degree more. So I wear this thing. 2 stickers, they have a little piece of metal in them. Have you guys seen this? And I got this little round, and I put it on, and it rips my nostrils, wider. I look like a water buffalo. When I sleep, I'm breathing and sleeping so well. I'm not snoring, but the number one thing I notice is I wake up with significantly more energy. How is that possible? Like how much oxygen? But even if it's decreasing my oxygen intake by 10, 20, 30%, if we just simply set energy levels, if they're decreased by 10, 20, 30%, that's significant. Simple math. Oxygen, huge for our blood vessels. So breathing exercise, breathing mechanics. Anybody heard of box breathing? Box breathing, if you imagine a box, start off with 1 second and then try to increase it to 2. But what you do is you breathe in for a second, you hold your breath for a second, You breathe out for a second, you hold your breath for a second. And you just picture the box. So it's and then you try to increase that to 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And as you start to increase that, it actually helps to reset your parasympathetic nervous system. When you breathe in oxygen and you hold it, you give your lungs a chance for the blood to move through and bind to that oxygen. And then when you breathe out, you're exhaling the carbon dioxide, you're flushing that all out, you hold your breath for a second, give your body a chance to get new blood back in. You breathe in, saturate that oxygen again, and it's really helpful for oxygenation. It's awesome for things like anxiety. It's great. Go ahead.
Modern world advocates that nasal breathing, you get better oxygenation of the blood.
Nasal breathing is to be preferred. There's research, mouth breathers, significantly higher heart disease. Nose breathers, less heart disease. So one of the, CPAP machines and all this, most of the reason people are on those, they're bad nasal breathers. Most of us become bad nasal breathers by habituation. When we're sitting at desks, we're talking, we're doing things, you're using your mouth more than you are your nose, so you tend to breathe more throughout. Also, shallow breathing tends to be more mouth breathing. Deeper breathing, when you breathe in deep, you can't help but, even if you're breathing through your mouth, you tend to suck through your nose more too. So deeper breathing. Shallow breathing, what most of us do all day long. We don't take these deep intentional breaths. Even that breath work of big breath, hold, out, hold, whether it's nose, mouth, just getting the oxygen in, but yes, nose is to be preferred.
There's also another, similar to what you're talking about, it's called intranasal dilation device. And it goes in like a nose ring.
Yep.
And it goes in, but it holds your nasals open.
Yep.
I sleep with one.
I actually have one too.
Okay.
I like the magnet thing better from the outside because that thing in my nose, I'm sensitive about my nose. I had ear and nose surgery as a kid, and I think that's where this started from, was an adenoid surgery gone wrong. But yeah, I just stuff in my nose. But yes, so essentially, like, the thing you put in your drain to catch hair from going down? It's kind of like that. It goes in your nose, it's perforated, it's got holes in it, and there's one on each side, and it just goes up in, so it's got holes so you can breathe through, but it keeps the nasal passage open. Similar thing. Autonomic balance, so that breathing, again, sympathetic tone, parasympathetic tone, so your nervous system, when we talk about tone or balance, it's akin to, you guys have heard a term called HRV, or heart rate variability. It's just a measurement of how your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are behaving. Sympathetics, that's a stress response in the body. Parasympathetics is the healing response. It's not good or bad. They're both intentful. Sympathetics, if a bear jumped in the room, you want your sympathetics firing. But when you're trying to heal and repair and rest, you want your parasympathetics firing. And it's, again, adaptability, right? Why does chiropractic have such a great effect on heart disease? Study after study after study, because it affects that autonomic balance in the nervous system. And so, again, I'm not saying we're going to make damaged blood vessels healthier by getting adjusted, but what we do help is the nervous system's response to healing and repair in terms of that parasympathetic function and bringing tone back. So when it comes to heart disease, decreasing bad fats, increasing good fats, decreasing sugar, increasing oxygenation. Those are the big keys. One of the best ways of increasing oxygenation, work out hard for 15 to 20 minutes every day. Breathing, sweating, like, you should not be able to talk. You want to work out. I don't care if you're 10, you should be working out. If you're 30, you should be working out. If you're 70, you should be working out. Everyone in this room should be working out and sweating 15 to 20 minutes every single day. If you have a body that moves, you should be working out and sweating 15 to 20 minutes every single day, bare minimum. Okay? Autoimmune disorders. I hate this terminology. Somebody define autoimmune disorder real quick for me. The general term over the last 30, 40 years, it's a condition in which your own immune system begins attacking your body. That's bullshit. Your body never attacks your body. That's not what's happening. You have an immune system that's designed to protect your body. But when your immune system gets hijacked due to chemical, emotional, or physical stress that is interfering with its normal function, your immune system starts to behave abnormally. And you have hyperactive or hypoactive immune responses. And the signs of that look like your body is under duress, but your body is not attacking your own body. Your body is just stuck in a state where it's having either a hyper or hypoactive immune response. And a hyperactive immune response means that any little thing can trigger immunity. And immunity, so think about this. Flu, right? That's an immune response. Is it good or is it bad? It's good. You're supposed to vomit and sweat and have a high temperature when you ate something or were exposed to something that your body is trying to get rid of or kill. If you ate week-old pizza, you better vomit. Because if not, that's going to do some other damage. And so anytime that we're having an immune response, immune responses are good. Immune responses that get out of control aren't good, because all of that stuff that's designed short-term to protect you is not designed long-term to be drawn out. So these chronic immune responses, where your own white blood cells are attacking tissue. So in COVID, for instance, when people got COVID, the COVID virus embedded itself typically within epithelial tissue, mostly within the lungs, okay? It attached to something called an acetylcholine receptor site. Acetylcholine receptor sites they're also called nicotinic receptor sites, because the only other thing that binds to acetylcholine receptor sites is nicotine. This is why smokers largely didn't get COVID. They were the most susceptible in terms of like lung conditions. They should have gotten it. Most smokers didn't get COVID because their receptor sites were already full of nicotine, so there was nowhere for the COVID to bind to. But when the COVID bound to that receptor site, the body wasn't attacking the lungs. It was trying to attack the COVID virus, but the COVID virus was now bound to this receptor site, so it did all this damage via cytokines. Cytokines are an immune cell that started attacking the lungs. It wasn't attacking the lungs. It was attacking the virus, but the virus was bound to the lungs. Now, if you had a healthy immune system, likely you didn't suffer from the really bad effects of COVID. Who suffer from COVID? They used to say people with 2.5 comorbidities who had weak immune systems. Now they're saying 3.8 comorbidities, meaning you already had 2 to 3, maybe even 4 other conditions that were destroying and compromising your health. And so your body was trying to repair 4 other things, and you had no energy left to fight off COVID. Does that make sense? It's pretty simple. And the same thing in autoimmunity. So what do we do with autoimmunity? Number 1, gut. Why the gut? Because 80% of your immune cells are derived from gut epithelium. All of your gut, all the bacteria in your gut get mobilized out in your body. Number 2, when you damage the gut, it starts, just like the blood vessel example, it actually starts breaking down the lining of your gut, and you start getting stuff that it's supposed to be in your gut, making its way out through your poop chute. All that stuff starts leaking out into your body. And so you get protein, you get other things, chemical stuff that starts leaching out into your interstitial tissue. And now your immune system starts going after it and attacking it. So kind of like COVID, it's not attacking your body, it's attacking stuff in your blood that was never designed to be in your blood. Where did it come from? From your leaky gut. So we got to heal and restore and replenish the gut. We have a gut protocol. It's called the 4 R's protocol. So if you know anybody that has an immune issue and you want to heal and seal the gut, the 4 R's protocol, it's 4 different supplements. They start off with getting everything flushed out. So there's a little bit of a cleanse there. Number 2, we're re-healing the gut and establishing the lining. Number 3, we're adding in some digestive support via enzymes to help your body start breaking some stuff down as it heals, to take some stress off of the gut. Number 4, we're replenishing the bacteria, the good bacteria that should be in the gut. If you put good bacteria into a leaky gut, that good bacteria makes its way out in your bloodstream, and that's not where you want that either. So the goal is that we go through that whole 4 R's protocol. Toxin overload. So liver especially, when the liver and the bile get backed up, it starts creating a toxic burden on the body, and it increases immune responses. So decreasing alcohol is the huge one there. Chronic inflammation. Just if this goes back to like comorbidities and all this, when we have a lot of inflammation going on, our body is having to heal from that all the time. And so we can develop this hyperactive immune response because we've weakened other systems in the body. And then lastly, our immune system can lose the ability to distinguish itself from a threat. And again, going back to subluxation, how does subluxation play in? If there is an interference to the nerves that are regulating the immune system, just from the gate, you can have a discoordinated immune response. So when people come in and they're we have patients come in with chronic illness, we have patients come in, kids with ear infections, we adjust them, ear infection goes away, or thyroid starts to improve, or these things, and they're like, how it was all neurological. All we did was remove interference so that the body could start functioning and communicating and adapting in a better way, okay? I told you I'd bring subluxation into every single one of these. Triggers, there can be environmental triggers. So for instance, asthma now is referred to as an autoimmune situation. If we all walk outside and breathe in pollens, an asthmatic, they react to it, we don't. It's not the pollen. It's their reaction to the pollen. And so it's something that their body is recognizing that pollen as a threat more than our bodies recognize it as a threat. There are different reasons why that happens. Long story short, if people get their gut cleaned up, they remove a lot of these autoimmune stuff, believe it or not. Going back to, again, I'll say this, vaccines. When you're introducing chemicals and proteins and neurotoxins and all this stuff directly into your bloodstream, your immune system has to respond to that. The thought process is it's going to respond to the antigen, the virus or whatever they put in you, and it's going to learn to fight that off. Well, in order to fight that off, they have to piss off your immune system, so they add in aluminum and all this other stuff, and then they have to stabilize it so it doesn't go bad when they transport it from where it's made to the hospital. So then they add in things like preservatives, polysorbate, formaldehyde, all these different. So now we can develop allergies to all these chemicals that get added into vaccines. It's not necessarily the virus in the needle that anti-vaxxers are against. I believe you should be exposed to viruses and develop immune responses. You typically do it through your nose, your mouth, your eyes. But what I don't like is all the other crap that gets added in with them that creates this chronic, disease and this chronic immune response within people. That's what we're really trying. So removing as many of those triggers, most of those triggers, we develop triggers to them environmentally because we've been exposed to them in some way, shape, or form, or weakened so that we can't, fight them. So autoimmunity is a crazy topic, but the big takeaway is understand you have an immune system. It's either functioning well or it's dysfunctional. So you don't have autoimmunity, you have a poorly or dysfunctioning immune system. And so that now goes, okay, how do I get my immune system built up and stronger? Remove subluxation, remove interference, build up that gut, and then start getting your entire body back on a healing track.
Did you say that thyroid problems are under that category?
Yeah, they consider thyroid problems to be autoimmune. Anything that they can't explain. Any glandular tissue, especially, that they can't explain why it's going bad. Appendix, tonsils, adenoids, thyroid. Guess what most of those glandular tissues do? They actually kill cancer. They're anti-carcinogenic. They're designed to get infected. They're designed to fight things off on a low level so that they're constantly being prepared for a battle so that when you have a big battle, they actually are ready, right? They're designed to have low-level infection at times. But when we get weak, those organs they're just very sensitive because they're glandular tissue. Glandular tissue tends to be one of the first things to fail when people's health is decreasing. Okay? You can take desiccated glandulars from other animals. It's weird to think that we're taking thyroids from other animals and eating them, and it makes our thyroid better because those animals' thyroids were healthier than ours. So we're taking their thyroid dehydrated in a capsule, and it supports our thyroid. It's weird. Yeah, how many of you guys know that we used to eat animals from nose to tail? Like we ate everything? Like chickens, we ate bones, broth, and all this stuff. So organ meats, we all like the muscle. Muscle tastes good, but culturally, we ate organ meats. And there's a principle that says like supports like. So if you have an issue with something, taking that organ from the animal and eating it actually supports yours because it recognizes the same proteins and the same amino acids and things that are in there that support you. Those glandulars can be really helpful. I mean, crazy enough, but eyes.
Do you do that?
I use a product that is a glandular product. So I use a beef glandular product. Ancestral Designs is the one I use. So it's just one of my supplements I take every day. It's just beef organs.
So what about like the broth, like bone broth? I drink a bone broth every morning.
Bone broth is awesome. It's really awesome for your gut. It's really awesome for your gut. Go ahead.
You already skipped to the next one. Yeah.
Anxiety and depression. I just gave you guys some low-level anxiety.
Back to the start.
Everyone in this room is under a stress level that 100 years ago would have put somebody in a mental institution. And we don't realize it because culturally we've adapted to it to some way, shape, or form. But our schedules, dopamine, phones, like an alert goes off, ding, right, ding. Immediately, like we're triggered, you have to respond to it. Emails, all this stuff, like our brains are just all the time going. Our stress levels are unbelievably high. You cannot fight high levels of stress by simply removing the stress because it's near impossible. I mean, you could shut off your phone and not use it. We do that. Here's one I would challenge you guys with. You guys, anybody here Charlie Kirk's? He would take a Sabbath away from his phone. So Friday night he would put it in a drawer and he wouldn't pull it out till Saturday night. It's a great habit to get into.
My husband does that.
It's a great habit to get into. I love it. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to turn that thing back on.
That's when all the noise starts up again.
But taking a break here and there just as a reset. There's a principle. Some of you guys have been to classes before. You've heard this. Write this down. If you didn't write it down last time, write it down this time. Stress. There's two types: distress, D-I-S-T-R-E-S-S, and the other one is called eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. Definitively, a eustress is any stress that adds a net positive gain to your overall well-being. A distress is something that has a net negative to your overall well-being, okay? So, somebody name off a distress. I'll tell you.
Meditating.
Distress would be a negative.
Relational conflict.
Relational conflict. My favorite one is when the person behind me honks at me at the light when it just turned green. That will send me through the roof. I don't know what it is.
And you just go slower.
Oh, it just irritates me to no end. My wife, I get it immediately can send me through the roof, and I have no idea why. But the key to stress isn't trying to avoid all stress. The key to stress is to try to balance your distressors with eustressors. And being proactive and getting ahead of the distressors is the key. So when you wake up first thing in the morning, don't have your phone right there, and the first thing you do is Facebook or email. First thing you do, pray, meditate, read your Bible, read a book. Practice a eustress first thing when you wake up in the morning. Very first thing. A eustress is anything that has a net positive, right? So meditation, prayer, reading your Bible. Exercise. Exercise can be a eustress. Here's the crazy thing. How many of you guys feel like exercise is a distress? Right? How about a dyslexic kid? Do you think he thinks reading is a eustress? No. How about if your family was such that your relationship with God or Jesus Christ is not a healthy one? Do you think reading your Bible is going to feel like a eustress? No. So it's all perception. It's all perception. A crying kid, to some people, it's like, God, shut that kid up. But to a mom that hasn't been able to have a child that wants a child, a crying kid is like she's longing for it. It can be a eustress. Perception about our stress. So how we think about our stress, it's called metacognition. Have you guys thought about why things stress you out? Because they're as a business owner and as somebody who has a job of leading a team of people, there are things that sometimes a shift in my perspective from having one-on-one meetings with my team can feel like a distress. But if I actually am prepared going into it, if I actually think about the other person and their needs and what I want to help them with and bring into that conversation, sometimes I sit down and those conversations are actually life-giving. And typically, it's actually I'm giving something to them, and then in return, we feel good about it. So sometimes it's just perception. Stress is a really weird thing. Like, I would argue that back in the day when you had to like fight lions and tigers and bears, and you had to hunt for your food, and Goliath is trying to kill, the Philistines are coming after you. Like, that sounds like pretty stressful to me. And like today, it's like emails and dopamine and all this. But regardless of what it is, it's more perception than anything. Perception is a huge part of this. Now, this being said, when do we regulate? Sleep. So if anxiety and depression, most of those people, when I talk to them, they have a couple things in common. They're typically not exercising or not sleeping well. Sometimes both. Now that's not 100%. And then also, blood sugar stabilization has a huge impact. If your blood sugar is stable, it's amazing how much it affects anxiety and depression. If you listen to any ad for any anxiety or depressive medication, it will say, does anybody know? I can't even think of one off the top of my head. Zoloft, okay? There's one. Zoloft. At the end of the commercial, it always says this. Every single one, bar none, it will always say this. You can take this to the bank. Zoloft has been proven to decrease symptoms of anxiety or depression, or whatever it is, when combined with diet and exercise. Now, they don't tell you what diet and they don't tell you what exercise, but here's why they have to say that. Because when they studied the drug and they had a control group, so no drug, drug, these people felt better. They were on the drug, they felt better. But then they had to compare it to other things to show that it was more effective than other things. So they drug, exercise. Exercise always outperformed the drug. Okay? So then they took another group and they said drug plus exercise. The drug plus exercise group outperformed the drug. So they say it works great when combined with diet and exercise, but what they don't tell you is diet and exercise alone actually outperform the drug. Isn't that wild? That's true. That's why they have to say it at the end of the commercial. It works well when performed with diet and exercise. When you go to your doctor and he goes, Zoloft, where on the sheet does it tell you diet and exercise? It doesn't. You just take the drug and they don't say anything about it. But every study has shown if you work out, sweat every day, get your nervous system regulated, you're sleeping better, all these things. When you work out, guess how much better you sleep typically? Way better. So a lot of people think they have a depression problem and they're like, I'm not sleeping and I'm so stressed out. It's like, you're so stressed out because you're not sleeping. And you're not sleeping because you're not moving. If you're exhausted and you worked out hard and then you sleep better, you're going to feel a hell of a lot better when you wake up in the morning. Anxiety and depression. Now, are there reasons? Does life suck sometimes? Absolutely. We're meant to experience the highs of life and good emotions. And we're meant to experience the lows in life and bad emotions, because guess what? The lows actually make the highs feel better. But what we're not meant to do is chemically get on a drug and just feel numb throughout your whole life. We have patients like this. I have patients that have gotten off of depressive medications. We have one lady that came off an antidepressant and an antipsychotic. And she got off these drugs and she was crying to me one day and she said, this is the first time in my life in the last 20 years that I felt joy. She had had 3 kids in 20 years and had never felt joy. I go, why did you get on the medication? She said, I got on the medication because I went through a rough spot. I had 2 family members die. I was stuck in a depression. And so she got on this drug. She didn't intend on getting on a drug to not feel joy for the next 20 years. She got on a drug because she felt like crap. And guess what? When people die, it sucks. Now, again, it's all perception, right? So there's ways of mentally dealing with that, but chemically, it's sorcery, and we're compromising that, and we gotta first acknowledge that. People are like, I'd be crazy if I wasn't on this drug. I'm like, you're kind of crazy saying that. That sounds crazy to me. But have you exercised lately? Go ahead.
The thing about that is it's okay to say, go exercise, go eat. But when you're depressed and you have anxiety,
Yep.
The last thing you want to do is to go exercise and eat.
I know.
You're in a catch-22 there.
I know.
And I will tell you that
Cancer's like that.
in medication, because we have those people in our family that have
Believe me.
gone to commit suicide because the depression and the anxiety is bad, and they could not get out of exercise.
Full disclosure, I have 2 family members in my family who suffered severe depression. They were probably bipolar by definition. They tried to commit suicide after they got on medication, because one of the number 1 side effects of an antidepressant medication, the reason they come with black box warnings, is you may have a desire to harm yourself or others. So it doesn't fix that problem, right? This is not a health talk right now. That's a spiritual problem, okay? That is a spiritual problem. And you can't take a drug for a spiritual problem. It's not gonna work.
What kind of a spiritual problem?
Anxiety, depression, bipolar disorders, those are conditions of the mind. The brain is an organ. The mind is a spiritual place. And when people are going through deep depression, deep anxiety, there's something that they're yearning for that they're not getting. I'm preaching right now, and I want you guys to know you don't have to take this, but I'm just saying there is something that's missing that a drug or another person or anything isn't going to fill that void. There's only one thing that can fill that void, in my opinion, okay? And so I don't want to sit here and that's just my opinion on it, okay? So when I talk about, I'm not talking about clinical, I'm talking about patients that come to me. The vast majority of people that are on anxiety and depressive medication did not intend to be on it for life. Most of them were experiencing some anxiety, experiencing some depression, most of them. And next thing you know, they have defined themselves as, I have anxiety. You don't have anxiety. You were anxious, you got on this stuff, but there are, cancer is another example of this. People who are on chemotherapy do not want to get up and work out. One of the number 1 things you can do to combat cancer, oxygenation. Where do you get oxygenation? Working out. It sucks, but sometimes you just have to do the thing. There's a quote, you guys feel free to write this one out, it's one of my favorites. In the cave you most fear is the treasure you most desire.
Say it again.
In the cave that you most fear is the treasure you most desire.
You most fear?
In the cave that you most fear is the treasure that you most desire. Sometimes we have to go, life is all about doing the thing. Successful people have created a habit simply of doing the things that unsuccessful people don't like to do. In every category, financially, marriage, health, fitness, it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying this to you guys as an example of all of them and perfectly. I'm a work in progress myself, believe me. But like going into the place, the thing that you don't want to do, that's the key to getting where we want to go. And so again, and I don't mean to sound cavalier when I say this, but any health condition, they're all hard. Somebody with depression, it feels like there was somebody else has cancer, and that's hard. But the reality is, that is disease. That's the land of disease, and disease is a very complicated thing. The answer to disease is health. Getting healthier. How do we get healthier? Spiritually, emotionally, physically. If you're dealing with a mental issue, we got to get well mentally. How do we get well mentally? And this is why I said Jesus. Like it's the best thing I know for people's mental affect. If it's physical and we're overweight, guess what? What's the healthy opposite of that? It's when you're eating well and you're exercising, you're fit. So that's the key to get out of that. It's not rocket science. You guys, hopefully none of you were hoping I was going to drop some magic, bombs and have a couple pills you could take or whatever. But it's a lifestyle thing. And this is, I told my staff today. I'm going to save this for the end. Supplement-wise, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, magnesium, those are the big three. Omega-3 fatty acids, that's brain food. Brain food. Your brain is made out of cholesterol. Omega-3 fatty acids are inflammatory. They feed your brain. Vitamin D, every study on vitamin D shows it has a positive effect on brain function and cognition and thinking and all these things. Oxygenation, I'm wearing a stupid thing on my nose and I actually feel better when I wake up in the morning. I think clearer when I'm wearing this thing. I would wear it all day long, except for it looks like I have a broken nose or something. I wore it today to school, and the little kid I was carpool, he's like, Mr. Berlin, what's on your nose? And I was like, oh shoot, that's still on there. And I had to explain it to him. Oxygenation. And then magnesium is one of the minerals that has a profound effect on the parasympathetic nervous system. Also, how many of those people, right, if they got adjusted and we were able to affect those upper two vertebrae right by the brainstem, where motivation, emotion, stress, processing, all that stuff is right here. This is your motherboard. This is your CPU. Your central processing unit is your brainstem. Everything gets processed here. So when that atlas is way off to the side and it's putting chronic stress and pressure on their brainstem, what if it's partially a physical problem? So when people have back pain and it's from pressure on a nerve, number one, it's going to help to decrease the inflammation. Number two, it's going to help repairing that nerve. Omega-3 fatty acids help to calm down inflammation. Again, omega-3s, brain and nerve food. So those are the two major things we talk about when it comes to chronic inflammation. Obviously, getting adjusted, keeping the joints moving. Lastly, building strength. A lot of times people have chronic pain because they also have chronic weakness. And something's weak and the joint is taking on way more stress than it should because the muscles aren't strong enough to actually support normal function. So posture. Arthritis. So curcumin and omega-3s. And then
what kind of omega-3s do you?
Fish oil or krill oil. I don't eat crustaceans personally.
But there are three parts to omega-3. A lot of omega-3s only have two. EPA,
DHA. So you want a cold pressed. So they're literally just squeezing the oil out of the fish skin, basically. I know it's gross, but as long as it's not a highly processed oil, you're looking for cold pressed fish oil. If you're buying something that says omega-3, sometimes it's more processed. If it literally says omega-3 and you look at the source and it says cold pressed fish oil, you're looking for a more whole food version of it.
Barleans is a good one.
Barleans, Carlson's.
Yes.
Carlson's is a great brand. And then a lot of times with chronic pain, it's an issue that people have not been moving and lubricating the joints. So movement lubricates joints. Movement is painful, but if you get through the pain, movement also causes joints to be lubricated. So a lot of times when people just start moving, they have to get through the painful part, but if they just start moving, when we adjust you, you're moving passively, right? We're moving joints. And people get up and they're like, oh, that feels better. It was movement. Movement is good for the body. Now, if you have a joint that's really locked up, it's not moving well, then that's where we come in. But in general, again, most of us we need to be moving more. Go ahead.
Joint lubrication. Collagen?
Collagen. So to answer your joint question, collagen, MSM, chondroitin, these are all constituents, mostly from animal products, that are really good. Again, bone broth, you're getting all of that stuff. If you make your own bone broth is fun because you just like roast a chicken, take all the meat off, and then you take the carcass and you throw it into a crock pot with some apple cider vinegar, and you can throw some celery and stuff for flavor, and you just cook it until the bones disappear. And just seriously, and then you pour it through a sieve so that you're not eating bone powder, and then the broth you're left over with is rich in all this stuff, so you don't have to take a bunch of supplements. Bone broth every single day, particularly on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, awesome for you. All right, every single one of these things we went over shares similar roots: chronic stress, systemic inflammation, and nerve system dysregulation. So when people get adjusted, they get on the advanced plan, which all of you guys got a book from us when you started care, and they start moving. We have 5 essentials. They're right there: chiropractic, nutrition, mindset, oxygenation, exercise, minimize toxins, and then the real big one is the last poster there. Jesus, right? That's the 6th essential. That's the answer to everything. And so I put it in these categories, but this is really where it's at. Elevated cortisol, sympathetic dominance, sleep disruption. Down here, subluxation, autonomic and hormone imbalance, poor vagal tone. Up here, gut damage, immune activation, oxidative stress. Everything has very similar patterns. The manifestations can be different because your balance might be different on which ones are more dysfunctional, and so it manifests in a different area, but they all have those root causes. Processed food, stress and screens, sitting in inactivity, environmental toxins. These are the things that we're really looking to minimize. So any condition, if you were to say, what do I do? Number 1, let's work on these and minimizing these as much as possible. Where did all this disease come from? We removed everything that made humans healthy. Movement, quality food, community, that's a huge one. People, depression, the number one thing they're lacking a lot of times is community. And then when you're depressed, you don't want to be around anybody, and it just spirals. Chairs, screen, we replaced it with chairs, screens, seed oils, isolation. The body hasn't changed, the environment's changed. And so I would challenge you guys, if you need specifics in any of these areas, again, email us, let us know. We'll put together a protocol for you. But the pathway back, why do we say nervous system first? All right, if you're suffocation, okay? If you're suffocating, something's blocking your air passageway, you're not getting oxygen. What does that lead to?
Asphyxiation.
Death,
Yes.
right? What's the answer? Remove the blockage. If you have an infarction, you have a blood vessel that's being blocked, and it's going to destroy blood flow to your heart. Your heart's not going to have any blood to pump. Tissue's not going to get blood. You're going to die. What's the solution? Remove the blockage. If you have a blockage to your nervous system, what is the result going to be? Death. Maybe not immediately, but tissue begins to die and weaken. And so what's the solution? Remove the interference. That's what subluxation is. How quick do you want suffocation to be resolved? Quickly. How much is it worth in the moment while you're suffocating? If somebody was going to charge you, you'd pay anything, right? Infarction. This is why I tell my staff, we went over this today, I said subluxation is inherently bad. Adjustments are always inherently good. When I adjust people and I'm like, have a great day, you're healing. How do I know they're healing? Because they were subluxated, they got adjusted, we removed interference, we increased the capacity of the nervous system to heal better. That's awesome. It is priceless. $55 is not enough. You can't pay for a better expression of your life. I told my team today, and you guys, this isn't 100% true, but I go, they don't pay for the adjustment. They pay for the ability to understand the value of the adjustment and to have a place to come to where they know they can get adjusted and have interference removed. They pay for the tutelage and the learning and for us to increase their belief and understanding in who they are. And then we adjust that bone, remove the interference, and they have a better expression of life. $55, $45 if you're a wellness patient. It's awesome, and it's the best kept secret, unfortunately, in healthcare. And then we have to like work on avoiding all this crap, and then we're gonna have better responses through exercise, breath work. So you guys, instead of getting overwhelmed, what I want to challenge you to do is take your 1 or 2 very practical things that you're not doing. Find out the 1 or 2 things that you know 100%. I used to ask people this, you know, I'd have a crowd like this. Who thinks exercise is the most important thing? Hands go up. Who thinks nutrition is the most important thing? Hands go up. And I'm like, which one's more important? And everyone's like, they're arguing. I'm like, it's a trick question. It's the one you're not doing. All the people who like nutrition think nutrition's most important. Guess what? They're not exercising, and they're still complaining about their health. And all the people who think, you know, exercise is the most important, they're exercising and then eating donuts, and they're worried about their health. It's like, do the one you're not doing. Remember, in the cave you fear most is the treasure you most desire. So find out the 1 or 2 takeaways and lean into them. When it comes to exercise, I said breathe and sweat. The last component is breathe and sweat and do something that's actually going to cause you to grow some muscle. Growing some muscle at any age is always an advantage. Muscle mass at any age is an advantage. Well, I don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't worry, you won't. You won't. Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger if it wasn't for science. And chemicals. So, you know, I hear women say this all the time, well, I don't want to get bulky. You're not going to get bulky, I promise you. Build some muscle mass. It is one of the biggest advantages we have against health. It's huge. Feeling correctly, again, I could say it just very simply. Open up that book, Advanced Plan. The Advanced Plan, these two, you guys came to a talk, you left, and what happened immediately? Within the next several weeks?
We quit by taking anything out of the window and changed our whole diet with...
Their big takeaway was, I said we don't eat out of a window.
Yeah, that was the big takeaway.
So when you don't eat out of a window, now where are you going to eat from? They started changing what they were eating at home, and you guys both lost what?
Right now I've lost 17 pounds.
Advanced Plan is the name of the game. If you guys don't know what the Advanced Plan is, open up that book. If you didn't get the book, we'll give you the book. Every disease becomes harder to create when you're moving in the direction of health. When you're increasing muscle mass, when you're increasing breath work, when you're increasing sleep, when you're increasing nutrition, when you're increasing your adjustments. Again, make so many good habits that there's no room left for the bad ones, and every single condition gets better.
I actually put a pair of pants on Saturday, and I haven't worn 5 years.
I'm glad you put them on and didn't come without. Glad you had pants on. This is all joking aside. It's like the Lego movie where the guy's like, "Where are my pants?" I think this slide's just more reiteration of the same thing and beating it to death. So, cool. I think we answered a lot of good stuff. We'll finish up so that you guys, anybody has to go, can get out of here. If anybody has a question, I'll stick around for a minute and clean this up. But if you guys have health-specific questions, what I would like you to do is actually spend a few minutes really well defining and articulating what it is that you want, what it is you're currently already doing, and what your current challenges or questions are. Okay? So, what is it you actually want? What is it you're trying to achieve? Well defined. I want to lose weight. Yeah, everybody wants to lose weight. What is it about, like, I want to look a certain way, I want to feel about, like, what is it about losing weight? Is it losing weight? Or is it actually, I want fitness? Because some people say, women are like, I want to lose weight. Guys are like, I want to gain muscle, I want to gain some lean muscle mass. So, like, what is the goal? Well articulated. What are you currently doing? What are any questions and or struggles that you have? And if you guys send that to us in email form, I personally will look at every single one of those, and I will make sure that you guys get an answer to that. It will include some version of the 5 essentials and nutrition recommendations not just blanketly advanced plan. I'll tell you certain things to focus on. And then lastly, typically there'll be a supplement or two recommendation, especially if it's condition specific, okay? Again, I told you tonight, I'm not here to sell supplements. You know, I mentioned a few or whatever, but if you guys have specific questions, I can help to answer those. Anything beyond that, we do take on some people and help them coach and do some blood work and stuff like that. That is just full disclosure, insurance doesn't cover it when you do it outside of a medical practice. If we're doing blood work and stuff like that, that can range sometimes from as little as about $800 up to about $2,500, and that's just for testing. And then we're making recommendations beyond that. So I can make some general recommendations. If you want someone like us actually looking through blood work and coaching you a little more specifically, we take on some clients for functional, but again, it's not cheap. The testing's not cheap. They're gonna pull a bunch of blood and urine, and we're gonna get a whole analysis done on it. But it ranges somewhere around between about $800 to about $2,400 to get some really good data back on that. So I just want you guys to know that is available. If there's something really specific going on, but outside of that, I will take anything. If you send us an email, I'll make sure that we personally address that and try to help you move forward and get some results. Cool?